Hello, we're live. Welcome to Earful of Dirt, the Major League Rugby podcast. I'm live here with Liam Poach at Poacher Rugby. I'm Aaron Castro. You can find me on Twitter at the Strobro. It's a great time when it comes to that. How'd your week go, Liam? I know that you seem to be growing a rugby beard, but still can't grow a mustache. Are you Amish?
No, I purposely keep the mustache short. I something about mustaches, just don't blend well with my face. But I mean, honestly, beards don't blend too well with my face. I always say that I'm growing it out, for the winter or something like that. No, it's laziness, pure laziness. But my week was going pretty well until the about midnight on Saturday night when the Free Jacks fell to the Seattle Seawolves. We'll discuss that a little later on the show. But other than that, I'm doing just fine and dandy. Aaron, how are you doing?
It's been pretty good. Today I had a midterm, so I got in the way a little bit of some work today.
Just the word midterm gives me anxiety. I drove by my old high school today and just got this weird feeling in the pit of my stomach, like I was forgetting something.
That's funny. That's funny. When it comes to going to grad school, I can't say I'm too enthused about all that. Yeah, maybe it's just different. Maybe it is what it is overall. But to dig into some of the, I guess, things that we could talk about. It was an interesting week in rugby per se. Mostly, I think the LA Sevens tended to work out pretty well on day one. They had, I think it was 17,000 people come through the gate, and yesterday I think they had about 14,000 come through the gate. So for them, I think they hit whatever target they needed to hit, because at 17,000, since AEG owns the facility and all that stuff, they're breaking even. At 14,000, they're probably breaking even too. So I think it was a successful move when you then incorporate all of the upgrades and facilities that athletes get that are going to participate in this tournament. It's great. There's really, it's a professional facility used by two professional teams on a day-to-day basis during their season. So, I would say the move to LA was not horrible. I mean, especially if you look at Sydney Sevens or Hamilton Sevens or Singapore, where no one goes to those tournaments.
It was definitely good for the USA rugby community, especially when you consider that there's been some shortcomings in terms of marketing in the last couple of years for several different events. Won't go into a big deep dive on any of that, but considering the 17,000 and 14,000 figures going through the gate, again, like you said, you're at the very least breaking even in that regard. So, at least making no money is not losing money, I guess, is a good way to look at it.
I mean, there's a lot of ways to sort of look at that and stuff, but everyone talked about Vegas. I think there was always going to be a drop when it came to attendance, and it was going to be a 2-day tournament, not a 3-day tournament, so you don't have that third day to sell tickets. But overall, as we go forward, you're going to build this thing year on year, and when we get to the Olympics, everyone's going to think about LA Sevens as the congregating point for rugby in the U.S. So,
and it's definitely going to get brought up again, by the time in 4 to 8 years when the USA is talking about a Rugby World Cup bid again. And but by again, I mean the conversation always comes up every time every time the Rugby World Cup comes around. They're like, could we possibly host in the United States?
I'm not.
We conceivably, yes, but slow your roll.
Yeah, I'm not looking at it in that respect. It's more so, was this success? Was the move successful? I think the move was successful. It wasn't the prognosticated disaster that many people thought to say because it wasn't in Vegas. All these I was like, the reality is, if you're going to Vegas, like, people talk about Vegas being an entertainment destination, but if you're going there for rugby and you're actually there for the rugby and you're there all day, so you're out in the sun all day, and then the session ends, I think, like 9 o'clock on Saturday. Are you gonna take advantage of all Vegas has to offer to the point where you will also be there at 9 a.m. the next day? Probably not, right? So it is what.
Oh, why is there a big nightlife in Vegas or something like that?
Oh, there. I heard, Keith Urban residency is hopping right now. That actually, so like when McGregor won his last fight, right? The Keith Urban residency got out at the same time. It was like a sprawl. It was kind of wild. Yeah. So that's LA Sevens. Thanks for listening to us to kind of blabber out. The U.S. went into the quarterfinal against South Africa. South Africa beat us. I think it was by 2, and they ended up winning the tournament. So I'm not going to say
good year for South Africa on the whole, wouldn't you say?
But I would say we've got some things to work on. We looked a lot better in this tournament overall, to be honest, than we had been. But let's get into match 1 of Major League Rugby, which was San Diego traveled to New Orleans, and the Legion won the match 25-21.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I thought this was a vastly entertaining game. I thought it was good to see two teams that are in the upper echelon of the league in terms of passing efficiency facing off. However, in this game, it was the Legion who would actually get the edge in that regard, over 700 meters with an average meters per pass mark of 5.1 compared to NOLA's mark of just 4.2. So, but the most glaring stat line in this matchup was the one that was probably most notable to viewers at home, which is that San Diego ended up controlling about 55% of the possession to go along with a 70% rate in the territory. So the reason I think that is this San Diego squad, they really seem to be on the same page week to week when it comes to the kind of pace they want to play, which in turn leads to an easier time for the players to focus on making the right decisions within the system, which in turn leads to more guys being in the right places at the right time to be just, outright effective. In terms of their passing game, it looks really smooth. The guys are finding the gaps. NOLA's defense wasn't even, awful or bad in particular on Saturday either. But when the San Diego tag is working like as efficiently as they were on a pass per pass basis, it's almost inevitable that they're eventually going to find the weak link in the opponent's defensive shift. Which they found 5, by the way, in terms of 5 line breaks, 3 coming by way of Mr. Nanu, who finished the match with a total of 93 meters and 2 tries. So, funny thing though, actually, NOLA actually beat San Diego in terms of quick ball rate. Scott Gale was he was pretty efficient at the breakdown, 72% mark in that metric. Unfortunately, like I said, it kind of comes down to a pass by pass effectiveness, and NOLA just kind of came up a little bit short in that regard.
72% for quick ball rate is kind of stupid. That is fast.
So I like to see a quick ball rate around 55 to 60%. I think like the 40s are a little bit too low. 70s, like you said, unless the other team's defense is really faltering. In terms of getting their shifts right, I don't see how that can be effective. You're probably, I would expect, you see that their MPP is 4.2. The league average so far has been a little bit over 5 this season. So, those passes weren't exactly being effective.
Well, and you could see that with meters gained. I think the one team that would be able to outpass you in general, at least in season 2, was Glendale, now Colorado, and they would throw the rock around, but their biggest problem is they would just turn the ball over on all those passes. And but
they also had a pretty veteran scrum half for most of the season in Davies.
For San Diego though, they tightened up their discipline, they conceded less penalties, They, you know, they were about the same when it came to scrums or lineouts won. This game was relatively even, except in meters made and, what they were doing. I think they were more efficient on what they wanted to do with their kicks. Nonu is just I wonder why Nonu was never a fly half, because he is like, when it comes to his passing, he's very efficient.
In American rugby, I feel like he could conceivably play any position along the back row, including, flanker and 8-man.
Along the back row, you really think he? Come on, man. But I think Dev Ferris did a pretty good job again this week, filling in for Nate Augsburger. The Legion's quick ball rate didn't drop. I mean, they're moving fast too. 67%. That's when it comes to teams that aren't wasting time at the breakdown to try and milk some of the clock, neither of these teams did so, which is, if you want to see some things, that's been important. I think the biggest one for me in this game was the front row change, because I think Peter Malcolm was struggling somewhat in his line out throwing. Paul Mullen was actually struggling a bit against Matt Harmon, even though Matt Harmon conceded penalties against Paul Mullen, but he was still kind of struggling.
Did Deaver come in at the beginning of the first half or shortly after the start of it?
The whole front. Hey, thanks for watching, Amy. The whole front row changed. Like they started a completely different front row in the second half. It was Deaver, Mir, and Aaron Mitchell. And this is the most we've gotten to see of Aaron Mitchell. But if you didn't like what you saw from Aaron Mitchell, oh my gosh, like he was scrumming. Like he was doing very well at the tight head spot, in this matchup against Dino Waldron for a little bit, and then against Ben Tarr. So really, I think for the most part, what we've seen is San Diego is, I would say, is the most complete team. And you're now getting down to getting all of your pieces together well. It was interesting to see, JP Duplessis leave the pitch early and how that would affect the way they played the game. But I think
that injury looked kind of bad too. You could see that there was some pain on his face as he left.
It will be interesting to see this week, because I wonder, Nonu also left with an injury. I wonder how long they'll be out, or if they'll be out at all, because what I've learned in rugby and just playing sports in general is that things look worse than they are, because somebody was like, he might have broke it, but he might have sprained it, because it's impressive to see how malleable bones are. But yeah, pretty good game. What one of the ones I would call a classic. It was much more fun than the Gilgronis game that was also going on at the same time, which we'll get to, I guess, right now.
Yeah, take a quick guess at what game I chose to watch, or pay more attention to. I guess I had it on my phone.
It did get exciting for you late in the first half.
Oh yeah, definitely the comeback started to come. I had both of these games on. Like I said, I had both these games on at one point, but then once I saw the Old Glory was blowing them out, I switched to the San Diego NOLA game. And then it was you who actually, you said something in the group chat, like along the lines of like, wow, Austin. And I was like, meh? So I switched back on, and they're like within 7 points. And I was like, this might be the comeback. And it wasn't the comeback.
This is the game. I really hope in a lot of the same ways that they had the ability in season 2 to win a game. We put the over-under at 2.5. They're showing us more that they have the ability to win so far early in the season, in the first 4 weeks, than they did last year. But in a lot of ways, do they not just remind you of that team that will give you hope and then just fall apart?
Yeah, I talk to Owen Hunt on the New England Free Jacks all the time about the Cleveland Browns, and he's a proud Buckeye and Browns fan, and I have this weird affinity for the team after the Patriots. So yeah, from that perspective, the Browns, like the Gilgronis, they will always give their fans hope. They'll always make these exciting moves in the offseason, change some stuff. They've got that orange theme going for them, so I guess there's the connection there. They'll change not change owners, but change coaches, change everything, but they will still be the same old team. Same old Austin, same old Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to go winless, but man.
No, well, I mean that's already guaranteed because what they tied, baby. A tie is a tie, especially in rugby. You get some sort of points for it in the eventual, bonus system.
Well, so they have more points now, I think, on the table than they had in season 2. So they are leaps and bounds better. The question is, when will they put it all together? I think they're close, but I'm not going to pick them this time. Yeah, I didn't pick them last week, but I was stupid enough to change my pick in Super Brew when I saw the Beast wasn't playing because I thought
that he would make that much of a difference.
Well, I thought that Jake Turnbull wouldn't have a good game because he didn't have a good game against Nola when he started and had to play a lot of minutes. And Jake Turnbull ended up having a really good game in the scrum. I was a bit surprising, and he went the distance. So good for him. And I think he'll get better playing with the Beast. So there's that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So some quick stats just for the viewers out there, because in America, love the statistics. Austin, they actually beat out DC in terms of possession and territory ratings, garnering 57% and 52% respectively in those areas. So DC, they did win the battle for more meters, just barely, accumulating 724 compared to 710 from Austin. But once again, both teams, Peterson came through big for DC because both teams only got 3 tries apiece, but his 3 penalty conversions were 3 more than Austin was able to get all game. So that is really what put them over the edge. So that team now owing pretty much 2 wins to the boot of Peterson.
Yeah, if you look at Jason Robertson and Danny Tusitala, they are playing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was I saying?
Yeah, Peterson.
Was I saying Peterson? I'm sorry. Yeah. I have Joe Peterson on the brain, man.
Oh, who does?
I have. I know, right? But that hair in San Diego, man, just flowing like a surfer. But no, yeah, sorry, Jason Robertson, not Peterson, from DC.
And if you want to know how Austin got back in this game, it's pretty simple. DC couldn't hold on to the ball either, and they conceded a lot more penalties. In some ways, they kind of. If you just look at the statistics, you're like, oh, they're kind of like San Diego. They'll concede a ton of penalties, but they're still good enough. It's a little bit different than that. And I mean, a little bit. But I would say Mungo Mason, a guy like him, he's willing this team. Jamison Fiona Schultz, he had a good game. And then I would say as a halfback pairing, no other halfback pairing is playing right now as well as Dave Tusitala and Jason Robertson. And one of the things that people have talked about, like their quick ball rate was 70%. Like, what the heck? I mean, so there's a lot of things to work on. One of the things that I did like to see was Austin won 100% of their scrums. Old Glory is still trucking. They were in the 80s again this week, so good for them. But it's not really about what they're doing up front. That like the back row is playing well in the open field, but their halfbacks are just managing this game and getting the balls out wide to guys like Declan O'Donnell. Threaten Paloma played pretty well, and then also Dylan Tecado Simpson. He had a good amount of time as well with the ball in hand. So, but I think it was a bit of a close shave for Andrew Douglas's side. However, they're 3-1. Who would have thought that Austin would be 0-4? Oh no. The way we have it is like 0-3-1 because you get points for a tie rather than having the tie in the middle. It's kind of strange. But
yeah, I mean, if I wouldn't try to do math on the air right now, I would just make myself
but
look foolish.
3-1 for Old Glory DC. I think with 25% of the schedule over, they're where they want to be. So good for them. But moving on to the good old Colorado Raptors. Now out there giving people like me hope that the Raptors might be back. I don't know about that, but there was some interesting commentary in this game, and I was like, okay, but why would you do that? Not that. Why would you say that? But apparently, Peter Borlase and the attack coach, whose name I forget, have chosen to junk the 1-3-2-2, which they had installed last season and built upon in the preseason, and go back to the 1-3-3-1, which is what Glendale ran in season 1. So we're going back to the system of old, the attack shape that Glendale built their dynasty on. We're going all the way back. And the thing is like, the teams that have been great with the 1-3-3-1. Let's look at them. Like the old Wallabies were pretty good, but South Africa in this tournament. Oh my gosh! You know what kind of monsters they have in the forwards? Like Eben Etzebeth, who's like 6'7", 280 pounds. And could probably play like a back in the United States because he's really skilled. I mean, he's used like a battering ram, but he's really skilled. He can pass the ball around like no other. Yeah, it was an interesting game. Even I would say that the way Utah tried playing, they played the territory game. They kicked the ball deep, and they played really good defense. A lot of really good defense, keeping Colorado deep in their own half for a while. And then it just fell apart. And over time, Glendale started scoring. I mean, if you don't take every possession you got and try to get some type of offense going, it's going to hurt you. And they gave up possession a lot. They just kicked it away. And they took away scoring opportunities from themselves because they couldn't really generate go forward out of their own half. And instead of holding on to the ball and trying to make something happen, they just were hoping that Colorado would turn the ball over deep in their own half playing pod rugby, and it never happened.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I thought this game was actually a little bit boring for some of the reasons that you said. I'm not a big fan of the whole kicking the ball away at the breakdown, especially when you're like at the halfway point. But
from a technical kicking perspective, if I was one of those people, which I'm not, it was kind of I'm at this point, I'm kind of a junkie just to watch tactics. Like, if you were into the tactical kicking game, it was kind of interesting to watch because Colorado, I would say, was more tactical in their kicking, and Utah was just hoping that Colorado would turn over the ball. That was it. You know, at least Colorado, especially with Mason Emerson, who would take the ball out from deep, and he would be like, he's an attacking fullback. He's not much of a kicker like DTS was. DTS, he's an attacking fullback, but he has a boot that can do things. I think Mason Emerson got very pissed off in this game because he just went off and, put up 218 meters by himself.
Yeah. No, it was definitely really good to see the Colorado Raptors actually revving their engines in this game and getting that attack going. I also like the fact that Rene Ranger seemed to have himself a game. I like the fact that he was getting a little bit more involved in the attack after. I don't know. I felt like he was kind of anonymous in the first few weeks of the season. Anyway, revving that engine for the Raptors, that led to them outpacing Utah by over 100 meters, averaging about 5.5 meters per pass compared to just 5 even from Utah. Both these teams, they were pretty slow at the rock, only 57% apiece in the in quick ball rating. But again, I kind of like to see the 50% 50 to 60% range in terms of a league average. But Colorado, they were actually able to turn up 2 steals at the breakdown, so that gave them a little bit more chance at possession. Looking at the set piece, Utah actually comes out of this one looking pretty good in just about every metric except one. They did allow a steal to Colorado, but they still
scoring.
Sorry, what was that?
Scoring.
Yeah. No, they looked. Hey man, numbers are numbers. But anyway, they won 100% of their scrums compared to just 89% from Colorado. 92% mark in the lineout compared to just 87% from the Raptors. However, when looking back on the ground production, you can see where Colorado's real dominance came in. Like you were saying, Mason Emerson had himself a game. Johnny Ryberg as well. 11 carries apiece, 218 meters for Emerson, 111 for Ryberg. Emerson managed to get himself a try, just like you mentioned, while the aforementioned Rene Ranger had himself 2. He didn't exactly light up the stat sheet in terms of total meters gained, but again, scoring is scoring, and putting points on the board is what this Raptors squad needs to do. Utah, perhaps unsurprising after hearing all that, only 84% on the tackle rate. That's actually pretty low when all things considered how the league has been going this season. If you watched the game, you would probably attribute that though to the huge gaps they were leaving open on defense because their defensive shift was very slow all game. And considering that this Raptors squad hasn't exactly been champagne, fast-paced rugby all season, that was a little surprising.
Yeah, it was for Colorado to get on the front foot. It was very important in this game. Kind of disappointing with what I saw from Utah. I wanted to see more, but they just kept kicking the ball away. So moving on to Game 4, which was the nightcap of Saturday. Seattle hosted the Neff.
Yep. So this game was scheduled for 10 p.m. It didn't get started until 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time because of
the worst part about this game. The worst part about this game, before we get into the actual worst part, was that my YouTube TV did not update. So I was stuck on whatever. They had the San Diego Free Jacks game on, sort of like filler. And so I was like 5 minutes behind, and I'm texting people. I was like, what the frick is going on? Like, it just didn't update. And so I had to like back out and go back in. And then the game was there, and I was like, oh my God. But yeah, but I think that wasn't just YouTube TV. I think FS2 was all whack in regards to updating their feed. So, yeah.
I mean, I think it also had a lot to do with the lightning delay.
Well, yeah. I mean, that would let's put this other thing on, while we fill it.
Right. Did you want to leave the commentators just trying to spit like small talk like in the 30 minutes? So what did you eat for breakfast today, mate? I didn't want to hear any more of that than that was actually necessary. So anyway, I guess what 4 straight weeks on the road will do to you is it'll force you to give up a 14-0 lead. But then again, 10 total tries in this game with each team scoring 5 apiece. So it was definitely an exciting affair as a whole. I thought the Free Jacks, they came out really strong in this one. In particular, I thought the ball carriers looked pretty explosive and decisive coming into their phases, while guys like Sam Beard and Mitch Wilson especially really ate it up in terms of total meters, 54 and 75 meters respectively from them apiece. Beard's stat line, it might not seem like he lit it up. I was talking to you, Aaron, a little earlier about this before we went on the air, but he had some large chunks of meters that he picked up in a few instances that really started off some drives on the right foot, particularly tighter right around the breakdown. Unfortunately for the Jacks, the Seawolves, they began to put it together in the second half when the Jacks started making a lot more mistakes, a lot more penalties, in particular a yellow card to Posa Wakanibau. That led to them controlling a good deal of the second half's possession, ending the game with a 55% mark in that respect to go along with a 51% mark in territory. So meanwhile, in the set piece where Seattle really put it together, 3 line-out steals, 2 coming in the second half, 100% win rate in the scrum compared to the 75% from New England, who's still missing a couple key figures from injury, in particular Kensuke Hatakeyama and Tony Papura. Then in the back line, tag leader is still missing, as well as Liam Steele. So a lot of key pieces to that starting lineup. Still, we're able to go up 14-0 on the defending champs. I'm still feeling good about the squad. Still averaging 29 points a game, which is one of the highest metrics in the league in that regard. But it's just in terms of finishing games and just staying on top when you have the chance.
It was very interesting. You want a tip for your team, Liam?
Yeah, sure, man. I'll pass it on.
Don't commit 7 penalties in 11 minutes.
Oh, yeah? Is that what you got to do? Oh, dude, I'm texting Larson right now, man. I got this scoop.
Especially when one of them's a yellow card. Okay.
Yeah. But to be fair, though, I wouldn't be texting Josh Larson. I'd be putting like a note in a bottle of Canadian syrup and just, putting it into the ocean. I think it'll just float up to Halifax. That goes into the Canadian mail system. It gets sent to him. I don't know how the whole thing works.
And it comes back. I think one of the things for the Free Jacks was, especially towards, I would say, the back half of the first half, and in the second half, part of this is because of Seattle's defense, but your ruck speed just slowed the heck down, and it really didn't help with based on the tempo that you played with in the first half to get those 2 tries, and just the way you were playing away from the set piece in the first half against the strength. Like around, not against, but around the strengths of Seattle was sort of the key to winning, I think. But for Seattle, it was, I wouldn't call it strange because it was different from the previous games. The biggest one for them is just having a fly half at the level that Ben Sema is. I like Scott Dean as a prospect. I really do. Do the games come on YouTube TV? Carter DiMaggio. You need to have ESPN Plus for some games, but YouTube TV gets you access to all the national games. So that's CBS Sports. That is FS2 and ESPN News. So there's like 51 national games on this year at some point there, but so you'll need, if you're going to be a junkie and you want to watch every game, that's what you will need. However, towards the end of the week, MLR has been really sweet about uploading games to regular YouTube. So check that out as well. Will Nola Gold be a playoff team? I'll answer that at the end of the show. But the biggest thing for me in this game was, so Shalom Suniula is like a top center for them, but he was their 4th fly half. Scott Dean, who did not play in this game, I really like as a prospect. I think he needs a lot more high-level time so that he can continue to develop. So not having him on the roster doesn't really help you. He might be injured, though, so I'd need to check in on that. But if you can have a fly half level of Sema, because he has gotten better. We usually do. His name is Tag Leader.
You know, not to say. And here's the thing: not to say that Tim Geeman's even bad. I think Tim is a great player. He's a really swell guy. Unfortunately, yeah, there were some points left off the board.
I would say the drop off between 1 and 2 in New England. Guillemon's a good fly half. I don't think we don't even need to talk about Tag until he's fit. Tag can play, but I'm talking about Seattle specifically compared to where they were. And
it is worth noting too that it's not a lower body injury or even an upper body injury for Tag Leader. It was a head injury, so there's nothing.
I thought you were saying he has IBS.
Yeah, no. Yeah, but there's nothing debilitating really about this. And not to say that injury to the head isn't debilitating. It's serious, and there's reasons that the team is taking precautions. But he's not going to be losing any leg strength or physical mobility from this injury moving forward.
But as I was saying, I don't care about Tag Leader right now. I care about Benzema. When you can take Benzema and he's ready and he's fit and he's playing like that, it takes a lot of pressure off JP Smith. And JP Smith basically had to play fly half and scrum half last game. He had a lot of pressure on him. He had to kick a lot in play. He had to play defense in places that he didn't normally play at. But when you can get JP and Seema's chemistry where it's at, and then you can put Shalom Suniula as a distributor at inside center, that changes things up for your entire attack. And we saw that especially in the second half. I wonder, based on who their pick for outside center is going to be, I really think that George Barton is sort of that guy you want there. And then on the wing, it was interesting to see Tibbs is fit. He's back. He scored a try, all that fun stuff. But does that not say there's depth issues if you have to go pull Peter Tiberio off the retirement block? But I did say to him, to his face, in San Diego, I was like, you're coming back, right? Like,
I mean, he was one of the top scorers in the league from years 1 and 2.
Yeah. So I was kind of annoyed that he decided to retire, and now that he's unretired, I can be annoyed that he decided to unretire.
Instant leader in the locker room as well.
Yeah. So him coming in late, just give Tiberio the ball. He'll score. Happens all the time. So really, a lot better from the Seawolves. They were better in the scrum. They were better in the lineouts. They were better in defense. They had the attitude that they needed to win this one. I wouldn't say we don't know what the Free Jacks are right now. I would say that if you're the last place team in the East, you would be the second place team in the West.
Yeah. Considering they were able to secure the bonus point with 4+ tries, so they're up to 8 table points at the moment. Currently sitting overall in the league in 6th place, I believe.
So that says how I think the Free Jacks will be all right. The problem is that the East is so competitive right now for that third spot. Heck, for the second and third spot, because Toronto is just by themselves. Sipping a Mai Tai, undefeated in the East. But moving on to Sunday's first match, which was, of course, Toronto versus Atlanta.
Yeah, so I was writing my match report for the majority of the game, but anyway, just in terms of table points, standings, and a whole other lot of things. Toronto, they're clearly the class of the East right now, I would say, and many people are already saying that they're on a collision course with San Diego. Speaking of San Diego, sorry, I see a lot of similarities between the two squads as well, especially in regards just to the general offensive flow of the attack. I feel like both of these teams, they have a real offensive identity, thanks to an overall roster chemistry that lets them operate in sync with one another, just staying on the same page. This week, I thought Toronto, they displayed a lot of that again, just putting down an early ATL lead and just not letting it get away after they did. ATL, meanwhile, some great phases on the attack. I'm really loving Wheeler and Davidson, as a pairing on the back line, but there's some stuff that they definitely need to clean up. In particular, this is one thing I noticed. They were playing pretty shallow on the back line, when they were in a rush in the second half. I felt like there were some phases where there was guys getting a little bit ahead of themselves in terms of their positioning, and that kind of, kept them out of position from moving, too fluidly. Toronto, not so much. Like I said, I like how this team has a real clear idea about who they are and how they operate, and I think that's going to lead to them winning a lot more games.
Yeah, Toronto is just really good. And you look at this team, and they didn't do the same thing San Diego did, which was change their front row immediately in the second half. I think I would have, especially with the way Quattrin and Brewer played. Jeez. Like with Quattrin coming on, set piece completely changed. Like the lineout was good. When Stephen Ing was playing, the lineout was not so good. The scrum got better, but when Brewer came on, the scrum for Atlanta basically disintegrated. It was kind of impressive to see what they were able to do. And this was
rapid deterioration.
This was Brewer's first game of the season. The old warhorse, he's just getting it done. But
you like that term, don't you, warhorse?
And old, that's
the old warhorse.
If you look at like loose heads in this league that are, old, some old warhorses, like last year Hubert Bidens was the oldest player in the league, and then now I think Robert Brewer might be tied with somebody for being the oldest player in the league. But
I feel like the old warhorse is the name of a cleat that's underneath the floorboards of a clubhouse that the rookies shoot the beer out of or something like that. So somebody go get the old warhorse.
When it comes to player discipline, Toronto continues to be one of the most disciplined teams in the league. They don't give up a lot of penalties.
Fewest penalties in the league, by the way.
Yeah. So, and it's just good for them. The Uruguayans the Uruguayans by themselves did Atlanta dirty. Sam Malcolm only had 4 points, but Miras had a try, Levas had 2 tries, and De La Vega had a try. So basically, all of the scoring was because of a Uruguayan on the Toronto team. So that shows how big of weapons Levas, Miras, De La Vega are. I think for some reason I felt like that they were underestimated, at least by the commentators. But it was a really good game, especially with the way Atlanta was playing early and how long it took Toronto to kind of figure it out overall. We're continuing to see development from Duncan Van Schalkwyk as a scrum half. Ross Deacon is playing well. Matt Heaton, who is a Canadian, is leading this Atlanta team, and they've got a lot of pieces that will push this this team forward. How strong they are, it's really impressive to see how strong Atlanta is. When you pair them up against, say, a Toronto. But who gets that third spot in the East, I really don't know right now because, conceivably the Free Jacks are still strong enough, especially when you get your first choice front row back. But for the Arrows, I mean, another pretty complete performance. There's not really much to sort of, tear apart. They were consistent throughout the entire game, and that's sort of how they played and got back into this.
Yeah. So, how likely would you say at this point is a collision course with Toronto and San Diego at the end of the year?
It's not 100%, but I would say
more likely than not.
More likely than not. preponderance of the evidence, as they would say in civil law. It's more likely than not that at 4-0, both teams 4-0, playing some pretty strong opposition, that they are going to be your two finalists. I think that they've also provided themselves enough cushion early to where if they did stumble, it wouldn't take them out of the playoffs. It wouldn't even take them out of the 2 seed, even though that would make them have to play another playoff game. They are both in the driver's seat of their conference.
All right. So one more game left on the docket to talk about here.
Yeah, so New York versus Houston. New York has been finding ways to win. That is the best way to put it. They've been finding ways to win. They've had some tough opposition last week in Atlanta. They found a way to win by 3 points. Oh, what is it with teams scoring 22 points in this league?
That seems to be the magic number. Before next show, I'm going to go back and count how many teams have ended the game with 22 points, whether or not it's been a win or a loss. But yeah, it's kind of like Jim Carrey in the number 23, just -1.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, just exactly like that. So I actually had called Houston to win this one, but from the first half, it was pretty clear that wasn't happening. RUNY, I thought they showed a lot more hustle early on, and Houston just didn't seem to be able to get things going on the attack with much consistency, although there was definitely some big plays and big runs here and there. However, when you look at the stat line, Houston, they actually outgained RUNY by over 100 meters, managing an MPP of 4.8. RUNY, meanwhile, saw some big nights from Honko and Foden. They put up 169 and 102 meters, respectively. I'm sure, Aaron, you're going to talk about Honko a whole lot when you get the chance. The team as a whole, they managed an MPP of 5 even. So Houston definitely, they had the chances to come up with more points. 15 penalties given up by RUNY compared to just 7 from the Cats. However, 67% win rate in the scrum was the uncharacteristic difference maker for Houston against a RUNY pack that was actually doing so great on a lot of their initial engagements in the scrum last night. Defensively, RUNY still looking good after the number 2 overall finish in the league for defense last season, especially for the North Shore kid, Nate Brakely. I just want to highlight some of his numbers on the night. He didn't exactly light up the offensive stat sheet, but 28 tackle attempts, 28 tackles made. That's 100%, folks, to go along with 8 tackle assists. The guy's work rate was through the roof, and despite the fact that he's not blowing up the sheet, like I said, on offense, I feel like a big part of RUNY's success is how Brakely does on a game-by-game basis in the defensive phases.
Yeah, Nate Brakely is just a monster.
Yeah, North Shore kid.
How many turnovers, Amy? Give me uno momento.
I was looking like that.
So they had
11 apiece.
Both teams conceded, yeah, and then New York conceded more penalties. So that, their comeback is just a bit more surprising. And I think if you look at it and what happened is with the territory game, and they made a lot of tackles. They made 196 tackles. So it's all based on where those tackles were and forcing like DeWitt Ruse to kick out. I think not having Tian Lutz at 12 really hurt them. To be honest, I know that Taylor Howden, he another old battered warhorse. He put in 80 minutes. He looked fit, but not having Tian Lutz, I think whether it was at 12 or in place of Marani, who actually played decently well, but he left early. He only had 31 minutes. I think they were missing like what Lutz brought to the table last week. When it comes to the quick ball percentage, both of these teams were slow, 48%. And, it's just considering the set piece percentage for New York at the line out, it was very impressive. And, with their tackling, they had 2 breakdown steals to over 0. So it was all about like how hard they played on defense, and they found a way to win. And, I will tell the butcher this myself, but when he kicked that ball, I was annoyed because he had support runners. He just needed to run and be prepared to offload, but it ended up not being a bad call. And then Walshy just eventually sees that ball around the 5 meter, and he's like, nah, we're gonna I know it's iced because of Mike Brown with that interception, but we're gonna get the bonus point right now. And I guess the Houston defense was not prepared, and they got the bonus point. When it comes to Nate Brakely, 28 tackles. He had 60 ruck arrivals last week. Guess what?
It's a large number.
He makes my body hurt, man. Just 28 tackles, right? He had 60 ruck arrivals again.
Yeah. 60 ruck arrivals, 2 dominant tackles. The fact that this man's body is still together and being as effective as it is he's only 4 games in, man. For the love of God, slow down. Somebody put a leash on this guy.
Yeah, it was something. But that sort of like wraps up the whole thing from last week. I think that Houston will again needs to go like whiteboard this out, because Austin's going to play. They're going to play them, and it is going to be a very competitive game. I think the edge, though, might go to Houston, especially since it is at home and we've been seeing a little bit more from them. But it's going to be a tough game. So moving on into the recap of our picks from last week. I went 4-2 in our picks, but I changed a pick, which murdered me. So I had SD -7. It's about right. Craig died. He had NOLA -3.
And I had San Diego -8.
And then on Old Glory versus the Ags, we all had Old Glory in this one. I changed my pick on Super Brew because I'm an idiot. Game 3, I had Utah by 3. Craig had Colorado by 5.
And I had Utah -3, so I was wrong in that regard as well.
So I've talked to Shane Skinner a bunch over the past couple of years, and I said to him, and he was mad. Like I remember him looking at me. He's like, "Why did you pick against us?" I was like, "With the way your luck is, if I pick against you, you're probably gonna win." And it happened again. I just thought it was gonna be a trap game because I looked at the rosters, especially I guess the rosters confirmed my point of view. And the rosters had New England had a decent performance against San Diego the week before, and they only had 2 changes. Seattle's roster had like 10 changes. And little did I know those 10 changes would be the thing that would, get the engine running. So, just make me pick against you and you'll win a game. Like that will happen.
It's the commentator's curse with kickers, but just the podcast version.
Seattle -7 for Craig, good for him. And then game 5, I had Toronto by 5. Craig had Atlanta by 3. I don't know why he thought that was a trap game.
Yeah, I went Toronto -4 on that one.
And then game 6 went with New York -5. Craig went with his hometown Roosters by 8.
And I was the only one who was wrong with Houston -5. I thought when the comeback started becoming close, I totally thought I was going to cash in on the upset there.
So moving on to this week's picks, I think I'm going to make we don't have picks from Craig. That's interesting. Craig is not joining us for the show because he's being a stockbroker or something right now. He had a client say, "Hey, if we're gonna get this deal done, you better be on the call at 10 p.m."
He's up in the New York accent too. He's making sure this deal gets done over a cup of coffee.
So Game 1, 8 p.m. on Friday. We get that Friday game, baby. Friday game. Toronto at Colorado. Who you got?
I'm going to go Toronto -9 on this one. I don't think any upset is coming to the Arrows this week.
So this, like, Toronto is they're going to come in for some revenge. So last year they put the freaking they put that Colorado scrum on roller skates and just pushed them down the pitch, got penalty after penalty, and still lost by 22 points. So hopefully it doesn't snow, and they're going to come out.
I mean, both these teams aren't unaccustomed to snow, though.
No, it was just really funny to see how dominant they were, and yet they couldn't score a point. And it was amusing in a lot of ways. But I'm going Toronto -8 in this one. Don't think, especially if it's dry and not snowed, not like there's not snow on the pitch. I don't think Colorado is going to have what it takes, but I think it'll be relatively close. Game Saturday at 4. Oh, what do you got questions? You got questions, Liam?
What? No, nothing.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt. Moving on to the next game.
Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern, New England at New Orleans.
My prediction is brought to you by Idaho Potatoes, and that's it.
This pick's kind of hard, to be honest, because I think that they played pretty well and even like 2 weeks in a row. But given the way New Orleans played at home, I'm going to give them. I'm going to go New Orleans -3. They'll be close, but I'll go with the hometown team. They play that gumbo rugby. Game 3.
Yeah, but we come with that chowder rugby, kid.
Chowder rugby.
Chowder rugby.
So game 3, Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Austin at Houston. Going Houston -4.
And I'm going Houston -6. Again, I don't think this is going to be the game that Austin gets it on track. The battle for Texas.
I am no longer. I'm just not picking them until they upset my pick.
Mm-hmm. So, fun fact: the Austin Gilgronis, Herd, or Elite have never defeated the SaberCats in a regular season game. Or no, wait. So no.
In season 1 they did.
Season 1 they did. Sorry. Yeah. No. That one victory was over the Utah Warriors in season 1.
So, So, and then moving
Game
on. Game 4. Game numero 4. Utah is at Seattle. So, I'm going to go Seattle -7. If Utah comes in with that same game plan as they did against Colorado, the thing is, Seattle healthy has more guys that can exit with kicks. So it's going to be an interesting kicking battle, but they've also got dynamic ball carriers in their back line. So I'm not sure that would be the game plan, especially on turf. It would be interesting to see what the weather is like, because the weather was kind of atrocious this last week. But I would say home side -7.
Yeah, I'm going to go Seattle -3. I think Utah's been playing a little bit better over the last 2 weeks, especially. I think they're going to be able to apply some pressure, especially in the set piece against Seattle. But still, Seattle victory. They keep it rolling after a victory this past weekend.
Game 5, Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern, ATL at DC. Man, this is hard. Oh, I don't know. I want to...
Good old East Coast battle.
I want to say if the Beast is back, it gets interesting.
But if the Beast is not back, though.
I think I might go DC -1 in this
All right.
which favors, if anyone knows how lines work, we always talk about this. is actually Atlanta is favored. But yeah, that's a hard pick. I don't know.
So I'm going to go opposite on that. I'm going to go ATL -5, assuming that the Beast does not come back. I think the Atlanta backline, as long as they clean up some of the issues in terms of pacing and in terms of depth, I think I think they're a little bit faster than the DC defensive shift has been all season.
Yeah. So, and then the nightcap for Sunday, I'm gonna go. So New York at San Diego. Oof. Man, if
you think this could be the one that San Diego drops?
it gets interesting, right? Because if Nonu and Duplessis are out, but if they get Augsburger back, San Diego has a lot of options. No,
I'm on the edge of my seat, Aaron.
Yeah, I would say home side by 4.
All right, and I'm going to go San Diego -2. The aforementioned injuries notwithstanding, I think they're a lot better. They're a lot better than New York in terms of offensive efficiency. They can get the ball out wide, actually keep and keep up a series for more than a phase or two. Whereas I think New York is very stop go with some instances of champagne rugby that lets them put up points every now and again, as well as some good movement, inside the 5 meter. But yeah, no, I'm gonna stay with San Diego. Stick with what's been working. I don't think this is going to be the trap game for them. I don't think San Diego's going undefeated either, but the streak doesn't end here.
So we'll move into questions. We did get some. I think we'll go fast. Martin Collin on Twitter. It's like, saw in some of the broadcasts there were no flags next to the names, team lineups. Is MLR scrapping that idea altogether, or will they be coming back with it? I don't know. Once they get them all correct, I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, no idea on that one either, man.
Life Love Rugby. Thoughts on the development so far for the competition down south? Do they seem to have a strong foundation, or is it all rushed? Also, what international region do you think will be the first to sign a broadcasting deal with MLR to show games in that area? As far as SLAR is concerned, I have not been following it at all. We have some breaking news.
Do we?
William Razaleka has re-signed with Seattle.
Wow, they're bringing the whole gang back.
They're bringing put the band back together.
I want to see this movie. Is Matt Turner like walking around to like all like the old haunts, and they're like, "You son of a bitch, I'm in."
I know, man. I guess Rick had a question on Facebook. I guess we will talk about that. So thoughts. I pay attention to a lot of rugby. I'm not paying attention to SLAR. I do not have that kind of time. I do pay attention on the Tier 2 Rugby Forum. Does it seem rushed? They've had so long to get this thing going. They announced that they were going to have a league the year MLR started. Like before MLR kicked off, they announced that they were going to have a league that would start in 2020. And they've been struggling. What it will look like, I don't know. I think that an intracontinental league rather than a single country league. I understand the United States is on North America, an entire continent, and we have to traverse from Seattle to New York, Seattle to Atlanta, Atlanta, San Diego.
The U.S. is 50 different countries, man. You can't convince me otherwise.
But the point is, at least you don't have to get your passport checked unless you're Toronto.
Yeah. Are you trying to tell me that Arizona's in the same country as Massachusetts? Because I won't believe you.
Get your papers. We're stopping you at the border. But yeah, I'm not paying that much attention to it. I think, as far as an international broadcasting deal,
I would love to see something with Sky Sports over in Britain.
We've signed a deal for limited reruns and highlights with Rugby Pass, which is owned by Sky New Zealand. So maybe New Zealand is the answer to that question. Moving on to Facebook, Rick Meyer, thoughts on the Seawolves bringing back Peter Tiberio? Is
Love
the
it.
boost he needed to hopefully start winning again? Well, I love Peter Tiberio. He's an amazing guy. And the fact that you just signed William Rozaleka back, I guess you're, getting the band back together. I think that kind of says a lot about injuries and depth. But, if you can sign Peter Tiberio off the street to fill in your depth problems, good for you, because that's a great pickup. Scott Ferreira, the big guy at the Rugby United supporters, says this week's show travel has taken a toll on some teams in season 4. So we see earlier home matches for the Northeast teams. I'm not so sure about that. I think I think they're trying to get they're trying to get people home as soon as possible because a lot of these guys have jobs.
So, yeah. But at the same time, though, the last few years have proven that, the Northeast hasn't exactly been getting pounded by blizzards during MLR season. So I don't think it's something that can be ruled out as long as global warming is taking its effect.
Well, you guys could have played some games right now.
Yeah, dude, it was 59 degrees.
The weather's cooperating right now. Whether it cooperates in April, I don't know. But the weather is cooperating right now.
So. Dude, in twice in my lifetime, there's been a blizzard on April Fool's Day. So
that wraps it up for us. Corey's going to put some legal stuff at the bottom of the show. Thank everyone for.
Hold on. So we did have a question earlier in the show. Will NOLA Gold be a playoff team from Carter DiMaggio? And Carter, my opinion on that is at the moment, yes, but that could very well change considering NOLA's performance from last season.
Yeah, we'll see, man. We will see. I think they project as a playoff team. It really depends. But there are a lot of teams in the East right now projecting as playoff teams.
All right, now it's time for that Corey Mumbo Jumbo. Corey!
Hit it.